welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into a massive, truly fundamental shift in how organizations protect their data. We are moving way away from the comfortable traditional world of network security and stepping right into the highly dynamic and, let's be real, often unpredictable realm of modern cloud environments. If you've been feeling like the old rules of cybersecurity just aren't cutting it anymore, well, you're absolutely in the right place. Okay, let's just dive right into this. I want you to consider the number 94%. According to the 2020 RightScale State of the Cloud report, that is the enterprise cloud adoption rate. I mean, think about that. Cloud computing isn't just some emerging trend or a cool alternative IT strategy anymore. It's the absolute ubiquitous reality for modern business. Pretty much everyone is operating in the cloud right now, and mostly because of the incredible speed, the scalability, and the rapid innovation it offers. But as we all know, that massive adoption comes with a very steep and honestly very dangerous learning curve. And here's the harsh reality of that learning curve. The 2020 Skybox Security Report showed a staggering 50% increase in cloud vulnerabilities over just a single year. 50%! That is a massive spike. What it tells us is that as businesses rush to ship features and adopt all these fancy new cloud capabilities, security is really struggling to keep pace. It's literally like building a high-speed bullet train, but completely forgetting to install the brakes. The traditional defenses that kept our on-premise networks safe, they're fundamentally failing us in the cloud. So how are we going to fix this? Well, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll examine the cloud security shift. Then, we'll break down exactly why traditional defenses fail. Third, we'll map out the cloud attack lifecycle. Fourth, we'll identify the top 5 threats you need to watch out for. And finally, we'll cover the best practices for actually defending your cloud infrastructure. Let's get to it. Kicking things off with Section 1, the cloud security shift and the end of the perimeter. So we really have to understand that moving to the cloud isn't just about changing where our servers live, right? It changes the fundamental assumptions of how we even do threat detection. The environment itself is entirely different. We're dealing with a highly dynamic inventory where systems just spin up and disappear in mere seconds. And if a configuration error slips in during a build, well, automation doesn't just deploy it once. It amplifies that error across dozens or even hundreds of workloads instantly, creating this massive automated copy-paste disaster. Plus, because of the sheer explosion of cloud services and new deployment tools, the whole concept of a traditional network perimeter is completely gone. Building a wall around your data center simply doesn't work when your infrastructure is entirely decentralized. Moving right along to Section 2, why traditional defenses fail, looking specifically at network versus cloud. Now, what's really interesting about this is the direct contrast between the old way and the new way. Traditionally, accessing a server meant you had to authenticate to the organization's private network perimeter. Security teams could monitor literally everything inside that private network to track administrative access. It was contained. But in the cloud, everything shifts to an API data access method. Cloud management systems are accessed directly from the public internet, whether that's through a web interface or an API. So that traditional approach of just monitoring internal traffic flow, it simply no longer applies here. And this structural change is really compounded by the human element. The tools offered by cloud service providers are incredibly powerful, absolutely, but they are also highly complex. You've got multiple access points and this constant, never-ending stream of newly released features. Combine all that complexity with a pretty severe industry-wide shortage of security expertise, and you get a massive risk of accidental misconfigurations. Without the right protections in place, an enterprise tenant can accidentally expose their company's absolute crown jewels to the entire public internet. And we're talking about doing this just by checking the wrong box. So how do attackers actually exploit this new environment? That brings us to Section 3, the cloud attack lifecycle, and the 2 avenues of compromise. When you break it down, attackers fundamentally have 2 distinct avenues to compromise cloud resources today. The first avenue starts with the traditional enterprise network. And the second avenue? Well, that one goes straight for the cloud credentials. Let's walk through Avenue 1 first. This is definitely the more traditional path. Step 1, the attacker breaches the traditional enterprise network perimeter. Step 2, once they're inside, they conduct reconnaissance and get to work on privilege escalation. Basically, they're hunting for an administrative account that bridges the gap. Finally, in Step 3, they use that compromised internal account to pivot, and boom, they access the organization's cloud resources. But look at Avenue 2. And this brilliantly illustrates where the attack surface becomes truly dangerous. The attacker just bypasses your enterprise network entirely. In step 1, they completely ignore your corporate firewall. Just skip it. In step 2, they directly compromise a remote administrator's account or cloud service provider credentials. This usually happens through an unmanaged device that's exposed to web browsing or maybe a simple email phishing scam. Then, in step 3, they gain immediate unmanaged control. Because they've compromised the main administrative account right off the bat, they don't even need to bother escalating privileges. They already hold the keys to the kingdom. This exact scenario really forces us to ask a highly critical question about our own organizations. How do you ensure proper monitoring of the misuse of CSP administrative privileges? Think about it. If an attacker is logging into your cloud environment using legitimate high-level credentials, but they're doing it from totally outside your corporate network, how would your current security stack even know something was wrong? Let's get into Section 4, the top 5 threats, with some insights straight from the source. Let's anchor this in some actual research. In a 2017 survey conducted by the Cloud Security Alliance, professionals identified their most pressing security issues. And crucially, of the 12 identified concerns, 5 of them were specifically related to managing credentials and the methods attackers use to compromise those credentials for malicious access. So the root of the cloud security problem overwhelmingly points right back to one thing: identity and access. Based on the severity from those survey results, here are the top 5 threats clearly laid out for you. Number 1, insufficient identity, credential, and access management. Number 2, insecure interfaces and APIs. Number 3, account hijacking. Number 4, malicious insiders. And number 5, insufficient due diligence. Let's take a closer look at those top 3, because they are absolutely critical. So, the crucial point is that insufficient IAM isn't just some tech buzzword. It represents a very tangible failure in your architecture. We're talking about the lack of a scalable identity system, a total failure to implement multi-factor authentication, relying on weak passwords, and completely lacking the automated rotation of cryptographic keys and certificates. When IAM fails, you are basically leaving the front door wide open. Building on that, the second and third threats, insecure API and account hijacking, well, they exploit the very interfaces that were designed to make the cloud so powerful and accessible in the first place. Without strict authentication, encryption, and continuous activity monitoring on your APIs, attackers can just hijack sessions, they can eavesdrop on user transactions, quietly manipulate your data, and even return falsified information to redirect your clients to completely illegitimate sites. It is an absolute nightmare scenario for any IT team. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Best Practices for Defense, and actually securing the cloud. Securing the cloud really starts with answering a surprisingly complex question. If there's a security problem in your cloud environment, who is at fault? Is it the cloud service provider, or is it you, the tenant organization? The answer actually lies in the shared responsibility model, and it is vital to understand this impartially. The cloud service provider is entirely responsible for securing the back-end management infrastructure. Think the physical servers, the foundational network, all of that. However, the tenant organization is solely responsible for what happens in the cloud. A really good rule of thumb is this: the provider is responsible for security of the cloud, but you are responsible for security in the cloud. It's your responsibility to secure those administrative accounts, to protect your data, and to identify access misuse. The CSPs are very, very clear on this. Securing administrative access falls entirely on the tenant. Let's move to the next point and see how this builds, because this is where it gets tricky. Since you inherently lack visibility into the CSP's backend infrastructure, you are forced to generate visibility within your own environment. If an attacker uses legitimate credentials to do bad things, traditional tools simply will not flag it. You absolutely need unified network and cloud visibility to detect attacker behaviors and spot services that are clearly operating outside of their expected specifications. Which leaves us with this final, crucial thought for today. As you review your own security posture, I really want you to ask yourself, are you relying on a traditional network perimeter to protect a cloud that has none? The paradigm has shifted, folks. To secure your data today, your defenses must shift right along with it, focusing on identity, rapid detection, and total visibility across your entire cloud infrastructure. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer.